Nick, I gotta ask you a question. I am confused about things.
All right.
Uh, I'm confused about a lot of things, but I'm gonna hit you with one right now. Every few weeks, I hear about a new model of AI coming out. Like it has a
Yeah.
new nickname, it has a new version number, it has a new set of features that it can accomplish, and I'm just like, hey, that's cool. That's what's up. But I would be lying if I said I understood what was going on. And we are
Yep.
in the Microsoft 365 world where there are different models being ran by different companies, uh,
Yep.
cycled through Microsoft right now in all of our tenants. Some people have things turned on, some people don't. It's a whole thing. And I can't at today right now. I'm actually not the person to ask to make sense of it,
Mm.
because you know what I'm used to, which is what everybody else is used to, is you have an application, it gets updated, and now it gets a new version number with some new features, and then we move on with our lives. They don't name the versions normally. They don't make it a whole thing. It's just there's a usually a lot of minor updates, and then you might get one major update, and then you'll hear about the new features
Mm.
going on.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it doesn't feel that way with these AI models. It feels very confusing. And I'd like to ask, Nick, can you help me out here? You know what I'm saying? Help me and the listeners out. Try to make sense of what's going on, because it's extremely confusing, at least for me.
Well, hopefully so. I mean, just in the Microsoft space, I remember the excitement around, transitioning from Windows 95 to Windows 98. I'm aging myself here, but
I do too. I do too. I
it,
remember
it
that.
was it was the case that we waited for a release, and that release arrived, and it was somewhat exciting because that's when you got your new features, that's when you saw new stuff, and we kind of moved away from that. The age of SaaS moved it away from that. Things were updating all the time. We wouldn't necessarily know. There's a version number of all of these apps in the background, but it didn't really matter. At some point, we moved to our version of Office was Office 365, or our version of Microsoft 365 was just
Yep.
Microsoft 365, and that was the app that you had. And so, what's going on right now with the AI models is kind of a little bit more like what was going on back in the Windows 95 to Windows 98 to Windows XP. There was another one in the middle there, but no one used that. Days, at least in terms of the marketing message that these companies are trying to make around them. They're trying to make excitement grow, and while no one is going to be standing outside of, a Staples or an Office Max or whatever it was back in the day to buy their physical copy of the new AI model like they were the
Mm.
CD-ROMs back in the day, they're trying
Right,
to
right.
grow that excitement, right? Now, is that justified by the changes that are actually being made? I think for most users, probably not. I've said this a lot, that if you're someone who's doing like cutting edge research, you're a scientist, you're a researcher, you're doing something that actually requires the level of intelligence that we're talking about when we release a new model, then sure, you can be excited about the fact that a new model comes out. If you're someone who's just trying to like run through your emails, then the difference between GPT 5 and GPT 5.5 or whatever it isn't necessarily that significant. There will be lots of people who push back on me about that, but
Really?
there's a reason that the default in Microsoft 365 is auto. Just let Microsoft handle it, and don't worry too much about the model that you're using. So
Right.
I think what's more important to think about is not necessarily like, are you getting new features, or distinctly new capabilities every time a new model releases. I think what's important to think about right now is the fact that a lot of these new releases are actually making the underlying product somewhat more complicated. Because we now have a situation where if you use Anthropic models in Microsoft 365 Copilot, those sit under a different data processing agreement than the core OpenAI models that we have been using. However, a wrinkle has arrived in that as well, in that Microsoft has now added an option that will become the default, I think, on July 24th, I think, for most users. I may have got that slightly wrong. I'm doing that from memory, but I believe that's the date. Where they will allow requests to OpenAI models to move out of Microsoft's control in Azure and go over to OpenAI data centers for processing. Now, all of these things are still covered by enterprise protections, so you don't need to worry about it so much in terms of what's happening to your data, unless you're in very specific kinds of companies and compliance situations, in which case you probably do. But the message is this is becoming more complicated. There's more data that's passing around from place to place. There's more knobs and dials that are existing under the surface. And managing this and kind of understanding what's going on and understanding which options are going to be available to which users based on what you turn on and turn off is becoming more complicated. So I think there's two different stories there. There's the one that's the kind of, should users be excited about this? It depends on the user, but should admins or those who are involved in IT be keeping a better eye on this? I think yes. There's a lot more reasons to be thinking about this specific issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think those type of people are absolutely needed. If we're talking about Microsoft, there are a barrage of Microsoft tools that exist that people don't know, one, exist, and two, they don't know how they work. Just forget AI for a second. Mm-hmm. But then there's a bunch of people who study these tools, use these tools, love these tools, and what do? They produce content to help people use these tools. So that's just with the regular tools that Microsoft produces. And that's to the world. I'm talking about like somebody will hop on YouTube and start recording YouTube videos showing you how to use Microsoft tools. There is absolutely a need. I think I've mentioned this before. There's absolutely a need for someone inside of an organization to keep their eye on this stuff and be a content producer for the organization. You have to tell people what is going on. You have to know what's going on, and then you have to tell people what's going on. And obviously make it digestible. So we come to a staff meeting. If you're in the IT team, this is the only team I could think of that would be doing this right now. If you're in the IT team, I expect some kind of AI update from you. Like, I don't think that's far-fetched. And I'm not saying you need to be, deep in the weeds about what's going on with AI, but you can help. You could share some information about what's going on and, let me know what our organization is using within the organization, sitting on Microsoft 365. I don't think that's a stretch. So to your point, yes, people should be IT or IT adjacent folks should definitely be keeping up with this stuff and then sharing that information at minimum with the folks inside of the organization. I'd love to see more of that. It's too much going on.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy it in as well. I mean, I have a handful of clients where I actually do this, either with quarterly updates or monthly lunch and learns or whatever the framework is that they're looking for, to go in and do a little briefing, a few demos, things that are coming up, in some cases directly to IT teams so that they are aware of kind of the technical side of things, but also to end users as well. And so I don't think there's any reason to think that you have to do these things internally. Like it's a fire hose of information, right? And somewhere along the lines, it's the cost of rolling out something like Copilot isn't just about buying those licenses and giving those licenses to users. And it certainly isn't just doing, a 4-week and 8-week training program when you first roll out those licenses. Like, all of these things are moving. All of these products are changing over time. And where you get a return on investment there is by actually embracing the fact that there are parts of it that are definitely improving and working out how they're improving in alignment with your use cases. And so to do that, you have to keep on top of things. You can use an outside party to help you with that. But also, if you use an outside party to help you with that, you need to have those discussions about what are the use cases that you're actually interested in. Like, what is it you do within the business? Where are the places where you have friction points with using Copilot? Because, whether it's someone in your IT team or whether it's someone you're buying in like me, If we're just turning up and doing a generic, hey, look what's going on with Copilot, that's never going to be as useful as look at these 3 or 4 things that are really relevant to the type of work you're doing and the types of friction points you've run into.
Yeah, 1,000%. Absolutely. You already know I agree with that. I have a question about these models though, the different versions and the models that come out. When they produce a new model and I have the ability to switch models,
Yep.
do you have a possible reason or use case as to why I would even want to switch models? You mentioned that Microsoft has it set to auto. So I'm like, yeah, stay on auto. Pick whatever you think is the best one for me to work with right now. Do you have what reason would I have to even look at that button and switch it? Like, why am I switching?
I think it's the level of interest. I really think this comes back to the profile of the user. I mean, in some cases, it'll come down to the type of work that the user is doing. And if you've identified within your organization that a certain model is going to produce a better quality result on a certain type of workload for what you're doing, then sure, put in place the idea that you're going to use that model. But I think that for most users, creating an expectation that you're going to take everything you do and you're going to run it through a selection of 4 or 5 different models in order to work out which one works best for that process. You're just going to turn off so many people by setting that expectation. And so if someone is interested in it, if someone wants to push the edges of what they're able to do, if someone is really passionate about exploring, and I will say everyone should have a certain amount of passion about exploring. Like, if you're not spending some time exploring what Copilot, or even if it's not Copilot, something like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using in your business can do for you, specifically you, then you're not going to get the best out of it. But, we're not going to convert everyone to a person who's going to be sitting there on their laptop into the evening with a Netflix show playing in front of them that they're not really watching while they're getting excited about what Claude can do today. Like, that is going to be a certain profile of nerd. And while I like and enjoy people who are that profile of nerd, I accepted long ago that I can't convert everyone to be that type of person.
Right. Yeah. If you want to see what my opinion, the caliber or the majority of people look like using the tools that you put in front of them at work, I think it's the same way people operate with cell phones. Smartphones specifically, they buy very expensive smartphones and it comes with a lot of cool things that it can do. But most people are texting, using social media, or using the camera. Those are the things that they use on the phone. You know what I'm saying? And then also playing some games. But the amount of things that your phone can do for these multiple thousands of dollars that you're paying for them, and all of these rich apps that people are developing for these devices, these mini computers, most people don't know about them. So that's why there's such a big market for education, especially tech education. If you could show people what they are holding inside of their pocket every single day or putting inside of their purse every single day. I didn't know I could do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, matter of fact, Google Maps. Google Maps is a very powerful application. One of the first applications on a smartphone that really truly blew my mind as to what we're doing here. I did not know that was possible. The stuff that just Google Maps does. But Google Maps does a lot of things that we know about, but it does a ton of things that most people don't use. That is just the nature of software. So if you could step in front of IT, or if you're on the IT team at your organization and you could step up and be like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to this because I know it's valuable information, but I have to get into the world of tech education, whether internally only or, expand. But this is a thing. It's like a pretty big deal. Years ago, when I saw what AI was doing, I was like, okay, listen, everybody, the way that finance touches everything, like everything, you cannot get away from finance when we're talking about anything having to do with any organization. That's the way AI is going to be. And it might be even more. So please get on board and figure out how this is going to fit into your strategy. There's a absolute need right now for some type of AI strategy to be happening at your organization. And at minimum, it should involve education, because it's a lot. Too much for you who's running a business, too much for the employees who have work to do. But if you might have to hire, like you said, you either hire externally or you get somebody internally to pick up that extra role or whatever. It's necessary. There's no way about it. At this day and age, you must have something like that specific even to your organization, because like you said, the use cases, that's where it's at. So Nick, I'm with you. I couldn't stress this more. And me and you, we're both in the industry of, providing tech education. So we already know the importance of and the value behind doing that. So specific to the organization just makes it even better. So I'm with you on that.
I think a lot of organizations have a big gap here, though. And it's not a gap that's specific to AI. It's a gap around how technology fits into the organization. We're starting from a position where there are hundreds, maybe thousands of features that exist within Microsoft 365. And it's the rare organization that genuinely has a roadmap that allows them to connect a subset of those features that are genuinely useful to them to the use cases where they're going to be valuable. And to do that, you have to understand the technology, you have to understand the options that are on the table, but more importantly, you have to understand the work processes and what those work processes are doing, where the friction points are. And too often, that isn't a dialogue that happens naturally within organizations. IT projects are something that happen where someone turns up, does a project, and goes away again. IT support, it's fixing a problem instead of understanding the root cause of where that issue is actually coming from and understanding the process around it. And I think the best organizations when it comes to this technology adoption piece, and now moving into the AI adoption piece, are the places where that conversation has been made to happen by bringing those two worlds together. Because they are not, if I go back to my Windows 95 days, the world of what IT was about back then was very different than it is today. Now technology envelops everything. Everything is connected with technology, everything is connected with data, and it's kind of like, just the plumbing of your organization. Whereas at the start, it did make logical sense to have it off kind of on its own. And that's what brought us to the days we have today of, we ask people, are you a Excel power user? And they'll say yes, and then they'll know one formula that they can write into Excel. And, it's that contextual understanding that we're just trying to get by and empower people with these tools that can really help them to achieve more. But it's just a matter of making them exciting and not making them scary. And I think a lot of the time we're not very good at that.
Yeah. I was in some training not that long ago about like change management. And it's crazy how change management back in the days could involve little technology, where now there's no way you're talking about change management at an organization that doesn't massively involve technology. It's just the night and day of what things used to be like, how things are. So it's a definite need for, again, education. I'm all in. Like let's say for instance, I gave the cell phone example, but let's just say for instance, somebody does this thing where they buy a refrigerator that can hook up to their Wi-Fi, which, to each their own, no judgment whatsoever. But I do find it a little laughable that you feel you should pay more money because you can get the fridge to hook up to Wi-Fi. Knock yourself out. Your world is your money. But if you have that, imagine how much more valuable you feel your investment is in your fridge if someone in your house tells you so many things. Let's say that on a daily basis, they go, hey, did you know that you could do this with the fridge because it hooks up to Wi-Fi? Hey, look at me. I'm doing this, this, and this because it hooks up to Wi-Fi. Like all of these things, or even risks. Hey, if the Wi-Fi is down, this part of the fridge is going to give you some issues because it works because it hooks up to Wi-Fi. All of that kind of information, it's like a no-brainer that people need that stuff. They want to know what they're dealing with, because I think there's this overall sense of like people who knew about technology before it really became part of every part of life, and people who didn't. The people who didn't beforehand, they were very fine with just like, hey, you folks over there who are using technology and y'all know about it, use it and know about it. And if I have a question, I'm gonna come to you. Now you have forced people who do not like technology to have technology in their hand on a regular basis and using it. So they absolutely need education. Like when it comes to basic things, something super basic. This is unfortunate, and I don't think that this old friend of mine is going to watch this show, but I'm going to mention something. Me and a friend of mine, this is years ago, pre-COVID, it was a while ago. Me and a friend of mine, we were in the office, and we were talking about, email, whatever, something. And a older woman who we worked with, she said, "Oh, well, I pay for Ronald Reagan Wi-Fi." And we go, why do you pay for that? She was like, "Oh, because it's more secure." I was like, "Wow, why did she think that?" You know what I'm saying? Like, where did that thought process come from? That she just believed that the Ronald Reagan, which I didn't even know was a thing, the Ronald Reagan Wi-Fi was more secure than normal Wi-Fi.
Well, what is that?
I don't know. I don't know. Even to this day, I don't know. It's unfortunate that there are those folks who were not dealing with technology for a long time, and now technology's in their life, and you can do things like that. You can, manipulate them with technology, and because people are scared of technology, you can, fear monger, and you can do all of these things because they just don't know about technology, nor do they want to know it. It was never a thing they wanted to make part of their life. So it's unfortunate, but the way that you, at least one of the ways that you fill that gap, again, stressing it, education. You know what I'm saying? Technology. Education about technology is absolutely very much needed, and with this AI stuff coming out, 1,000% needed in and outside of organizations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. And I think your whole Wi-Fi connected refrigerator example. I suspect
I hope you don't got a Wi-Fi connected fridge there, Nick. I'd be very surprised if you had one of those.
Well, I was just going to say that. I would suspect that the majority of people who own Wi-Fi connected refrigerators aren't people you would ordinarily describe as technology experts. And I think that's an important distinction, that you can be an enthusiast for this stuff without having a great deal of understanding of it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely,
and obviously there are enthusiast products there, but just to think that you need to have the latest thing with all the bells and whistles to get the job done. I mean, I am currently rocking my wife's old iPhone, because I don't need the latest. Like, she likes to take photos and stuff. I don't care, so I'm not good at that anyway. So I don't need the latest iPhone. It does everything that I need it to do. But I fully understand. Well, I say fully. I understand better than a lot of people would what the possibilities are. And if there was something that I definitely needed to do on a later model, then I could ascertain that and go out and buy the right model to be able to do that. So it's a balance of understanding. And I think a lot of the time we get this kind of cycle of excitement that isn't grounded on anything that's actually to do with getting more done that's actually useful to you, and we can get all excited about, oh, look, GPT 5.6 has come out, and is GPT 5.6 a good model? Sure. Is it significantly better than GPT 5.5? Probably not, for the majority of what you're doing. It's not going to make that much difference to you. And so, to a certain extent, I've given up on keeping track of this in the way that I was back when it was like GPT-4 to GPT-5 and so on and so forth, because we've got to a point where they're good enough. They're good enough, and the things that we should be focusing on are different. And just like your refrigerator that keeps your milk cold, but isn't connected to Wi-Fi, is probably good enough, and you don't need to upgrade it. Or just like my wife's old iPhone is good enough for doing the things that I do on a phone. The auto selector in Microsoft 365 Copilot for most users is probably good enough to draft whatever document it is you're trying to draft today.
Yeah. I'm with you, Nick. 2000% agree. Before we do get out of here, though, I do want to mention that there are people who are using technology on a regular basis that weren't even trying to. Don't underestimate the education that you have with the technology that you're using, because before, to Nick's point, like it used to be kind of like one big chunk of a world of technology. Windows 95 is just Windows. You put it on your computer, you use it. There's probably people listening to this show who drive around in a car that is heavily involved with technology. Mm-hmm. You are gaining a knowledge of how that technology works specifically to that car and that brand. You have an understanding of something that a lot of people don't. I have a general understanding of how that car probably works with the technology. I've never driven one. I've never been inside of one. But the person driving it every day, you have a lot of understanding of how that thing works. You can start to share that knowledge with your friends and family. You know what I mean? Like more people need this in plain language, hopefully. Nick, listen, before we get out of here, what you got going on? Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Those would be the best places to kind of reach me. Right. And, I continue to share my thoughts about the technology as it comes out. Usually not Wi-Fi connected refrigerators, but AI stuff. But you never know. We might have an AI connected refrigerator before long. So yes. I look forward to that. I won't be buying one, but I do look forward to that. How about you, Therman?
So, you can find me on TikTok. I'll just say that I'm on LinkedIn sparingly these days, but I will be back there soon. And you can find me on YouTube, but I'll be back there here soon. If you're looking for every single day, some SharePoint tips, some SharePoint education, technology education about what you pay for inside of SharePoint, find me on TikTok. It's a video platform just like YouTube, so I'm always showing you some stuff that's going down inside of SharePoint. Come give me a follow over there. Nick, never say never, because you never know. In the future, you might be walking up to an AI-enabled fridge where your food
possibly
is being stored.
We might not get a choice. It might be the only thing that's available when you go to Lowe's to buy one.
Exactly. Check out our new AI-enabled refrigerator model. Oh my goodness! All right, Nick. It's been fun as usual, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.
All right, take care.